Hey everyone, it's me, Buster Green, and if you follow my channel for a while, I tend to avoid stepping my foot into controversies because I really don't want to piss anyone off or get into a big fight with anyone, but one of the most hottest and most chaotic controversies right now is PalWorld, a video game that no one thought would come out, and it finally came out. And it's definitely a real game, and it's definitely fun looking, and it definitely exists. Now, totally honest with you guys, I haven't played it yet, but I want to play it. I want to buy it, and I haven't bought it because I don't have a Steam Deck yet or an Xbox, and yeah, so I just haven't played PalWorld. But I guess I will play it if it does ever get ported to PS4 or 5. But yeah, I'm willing to buy it because I want to see how good it is, and I want to know for myself what it's like. But despite that, the controversy going around with this game is so freaking insane, so freaking nuts, so complicated that I'm going to try to soak in all the angles of it and try to explain what's going on, what I think is going on. And in a surprise development, this time around, I actually went to see a lawyer and got some additional insight on this, which ended up being really interesting. Now, before I even start to unpack this, there's so many angles here. A lot of people are both attacking this game, defending this game, attacking Pokemon, defending this game, and they're all taking this way too personal. It's gotten extreme, guys. It's kind of shocking that people are getting this bent out of shape about a video game that they themselves did not make. And I think it's just people who are playing this game have felt that they own it and they're trying to defend what they've done. But I'll try to unpack everything that I see going on here. But to start with, just everyone needs to take a chill pill. Calm down, you guys. Whether or not PalWorld is going to live or die or exist, you guys gotta calm down, because the actual group of people who will directly be impacted by PalWorld existing or not is 40 Japanese people. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to be neutral like Switzerland, because I do want to play this game at least once, but I'm also aware of all the controversies around the game, and some of them are justified. So let's go over the controversies, and I'll try to predict some ways this whole thing might play out for the good or for the bad. So let me start by unpacking the controversy with this game chronologically, because since this game was announced, there's been controversy. And now, as we stand in the modern days, there's so many factions and gangs of people taking away different stakes and hot takes from this controversy. And first things first, let's start by talking about the people who actually made PalWorld and the people who started all these fires burning. Now, the small group of people I mentioned before who actually are affected by PalWorld, existing or not, is a company called Pocketpair, a very small company run by a CEO named Takeru Mizobe. Pocketpair right now has about 40 employees, and from what I understand, every time they start and stop a game, Takeru Mizobe fires everyone and then hires a completely new staff. So the Pocketpair right now that made PalWorld is a completely different staff than the one that made all his other games, because he just cycles through freelancers, using them and losing them, and he doesn't retain people because I'm sure they don't want to be retained, I guess, or maybe he doesn't want to retain them. I don't know, but that's sketchy. Usually when a company cycles through employees like that, that is not a good sign. Mizobe is a young, sketchy crypto bro. After college, he went to JP Morgan Chase and learned to make crypto money, and then he started his own cryptocurrency company after that. And after that, he used all his sketchy crypto money to create Pocketpair. So yeah, on top of that, Mizobe himself seems to be a pretty cringe guy. I get this behind the scenes understanding that he's obsessed with money. He's definitely a businessman. And based on the fact that he's got such a high layover rate, I guess that he doesn't really respect his workers. He's just in it for the money. So by all accounts, Pocketpair has made 5 video games and PalWorld is number 5. Although officially it's number 4, because the first video game they tried to make just didn't work out and they never publicly released it. So it was canceled. Anyway, whatever it was recycled into parts of their second video game, Over Dungeon. Now, Over Dungeon has become very obscure, even though it's only 2 years old. Over Dungeon was a low-budget indie game from 2021. And I found this video of it, and from what I can tell, it looks like it's a kind of weird clone of Yu-Gi-Oh! Mixed with like a dungeon strategy monster game. It doesn't look like a fully fleshed out game to me. It honestly just looks like the battle system from an RPG without the rest of the game. Anyway, Over Dungeon got pretty bad reviews because it overall was just like a fake Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, and a lot of people noticed that the cards in the game are like cheap AI art cards, and yeah, that's another thing I think we need to talk about. Takuro Mizobe loves two things: abusing AI content to save money, and cycling through freelancers that he underpays and abuses and then lays off. And yeah, so that brings us to the company's second horrible game, Craftopia, where as Over Dungeon was an incomplete, shallow game using AI, but ultimately it was playable, Craftopia was way more of an unplayable mess. To sum up Craftopia as simply as possible, all the bro did was he took Zelda Breath of the Wild, changed it a little, but not little enough, removed out the story, and tried to make it into a basic crafting survival game. And yeah, by all accounts, Craftopia sucks. Craftopia probably should have been the first massive nail in Pocketpair's coffin, but unfortunately the game was obscure enough, small enough, and unprofitable enough that it managed to slide under the radar, and it avoided Nintendo's watchful eyes and didn't get sued into oblivion right then and there. If it had, we wouldn't be talking about PalWorld right now. But yeah, to summarize, the first game, complete failure. Game 2 came out, saved money with AI, but it was a bad game. Still made money though. Game 3 though, gratuitously just stole from Zelda Breath of the Wild, but once again, made money. And with the proceeds from these successes, Pocketpair finally launched its PalWorld. And from the get-go, since it was announced, PalWorld has just marred with controversy. Now, before the game even came out, the early trailers for the game raised so many questions, so many eyebrows. It looked cookie cutter, it had default Unreal Engine assets, and the game was sacrilegious as hell with this like violent idea of like Pokemon, but with guns, murdering Pokemon, having your Pokemon be like sex slaves. And because of that, and because of the company's shady past, everyone kind of thought that, oh, PalWorld will never come out. This is probably just like a fundraising pre-order scam. Or that the Pals and PalWorld were just like the setup to launch like an NFT trading card line, which might have happened, except for the fact that the NFT market has cratered so much recently that I think that idea was canceled. But then again, who knows? PalWorld is kind of printing money right now, so maybe they'll actually come out with their fucking NFTs eventually, and that will just be further disgraceful on this disgraceful company. Anyway, so things got actually so bad that an article had to be posted to Kotaku from this company to Kotaku, swearing to God that the game was a real actual game with real actual existence, and it was definitely going to come out, and it wasn't just a rug pull pre-order scam, because, you know, like Logan Paul did that once and he stole millions of dollars that way, and he never got prosecuted. So he stole $1 million and got away with it. And yeah, but PalWorld actually made their game, so they didn't steal any money, right? Or did they? Anyway, let's just fast forward to what happened after the game did come out. So yes, the game did finally come out, and by all accounts, the game looks quite fun. People are having fun playing it. It does seem to recycle a lot of the basic gameplay concepts from Ark Survival, a boring dinosaur game I was aware of that by all accounts is tedious and boring as hell, but it fixes the issues Ark Survival had, makes them fun and interesting, and it adds in these fake Pokemon and this general amount of chaos that makes it a better game than Ark Survival. So can it really be called a ripoff when it's better than the original? It's like comparing, like, I don't know, pizza to Italian pizza. Anyway, by all accounts, let's just step back and look at PalWorld, the game, as it exists by itself in a vacuum, devoid of all the current controversies. Now, just checking it out, PalWorld, the game, it looks like a good thing. It looks like it's bringing a lot of new stuff to the table. It's one of the most ambitious survival games ever made. It's a step up from Ark Survival, and because it does contain all these like wild concepts like slavery, capturing people with Pokeballs, killing people, murdering Pokemon, murdering with guns, and it's distant enough from Pokemon's gameplay model that it does look like its own thing, and on that accord, it's thriving. So like I said, from a video game standpoint, PalWorld looks like an original slice of pie that I look forward to playing someday. If it does ever get ported over to PlayStation, I will crack it open and give it a shot. Or who knows, maybe I'll eventually get a Steam Deck if I win the lottery. But Anyway, so now let's go down to the controversies about PalWorld, because that's where the real like fire is burning right now. And I'm just going to try to throw these out in order of relevance, because some of the arguments are stupid and the stupid ones we can just brush aside. So right off the bat, a lot of people are just hating on PalWorld because people are haters. And even though some people have valid excuses, a lot of people don't. Like, by the same token, there's also a bunch of people defending PalWorld, and some of them are justified, but there's so much nuance here that I got to break things down and call out which elements are justified and which elements are wrong here, because it's nuts. Like, to start with, some people are just trying to cancel PalWorld, and they're trying to cancel PalWorld just because they're like animal rights nut jobs or anti-video game nut jobs or like pro-religious nut jobs. You know, the kind of people who just like hate all video games, think all video games are made by Satans. And, you know, these are the same people who have been around since like 1998 trying to cancel Pokemon for the fact it's fundamentally satanic cockfights. Or they also show up every time a new GTA game comes out and they're like, my God, if a person kills someone in a video game, surely they'll commit a murder in real life someday. And obviously, since PalWorld cleverly combines both Pokemon's monster model with the GTA excessive violence model, this game is an exquisite banquet dinner for these freaks. These people are just insane, and they can go to hell. These people are always going to be around complaining about something. And yeah, against these people, I gotta side with PalWorld because I side with video games. Against crazy people who don't understand video games, these people are just trying to hate something for the sake of hating it. So screw off. But now the next argument, I'm actually against PalWorld, because the next argument is that PalWorld was created by AI bots, and then we're in the AI bros versus the AI haters fight. And this fight is a really complicated fight. Now, to start with, AI bros, almost all of them are fucking scumbags. AI bros are usually anti-human, money-driven pigs who want to put artists, porn stars, YouTubers, pretty much anyone out of business and replace them all with AI robot reploids. And these people are just out there, they're ruining society, and they keep soapboxing about how good AI is when it's going to steal your job and get them money. AI is on the verge of causing an AI-generated Great Depression, and these guys are just there with like an open sack of cash waiting to collect. Because Mizobe is an AI bro, by all accounts, Pocketpair has used AI-generated assets for a couple of their previous games. Maybe even all of their previous games, since they've only been around since like 2020. And, you know, that's when the AI started getting bad. Like, it's extremely likely that some shit in PalWorld is AI-generated because Mizobe is so pro-AI. And a lot of people are just pointing to the shockingly lazy PalWorld designs as like evidence of this, because this looks like straight up like you just put a Pokemon in an AI generator and it came out green. Like, it really looks, for example, like this guy just looks like they took Cobalion and they had an AI redraw it like a little bit differently, and then they went with it. The color scheme is like way too damning. Like, honestly, that might have been the case, but officially so far, for better or worse, there's been no proof that AI was used in PalWorld. Now, for the record, I'm not always against AI. I do think there is a time and a place and a right way to use it, but all the AI we're seeing right now, like all the shit that's come out since like the pandemic with like OpenAI, ChatGPT, DALL-E, all that shit is anti-human. And all it does is threaten the global economy in some really disastrous ways. And we really need like immediate laws, and immediately you need to stop these people from doing some really effed up things before they like endanger society. There's a bunch of AI plagiarism lawsuits in the wild right now, and hopefully one of these makes a big enough impact to put some laws in place to stop this shit before it gets way too out of control, which I think it kind of already is. So yeah, back to the AI bros versus the AI haters fight. I gotta side with the AI haters because technically, even though PalWorld hasn't been fully caught using AI yet, and even though it's technically not a part of this argument yet, the fact of the matter is just AI sucks and is usually anti-human. So that brings us to the real meat and potatoes of the PalWorld controversy, and that is actually that the game doesn't use AI assets, it uses stolen assets. And that's where everything hits the fan and people lose their fucking minds. So It's basically been proven in previous games before this that Pocketpair used AI generated art for their game Under Dungeon, and then they blatantly stole assets from Breath of the Wild for Craftopia. And they also made another cheap indie game called like AI Art Generator Party, which is itself a self-explanatory game featuring an AI art generator at the core of the game. Anyway, a couple of days ago, a whistleblower by the name of Biofrog, who admittedly does have an agenda against PalWorld because he is anti the game because it promotes animal abuse, went out of his way to put out a more or less comprehensive and damning proof that the 3D models in PalWorld are publicly available model rips. These model rips have been available for years because every single Pokemon game has almost been immediately dumped by data miners looking for secret and unused Pokemon, and according to the research, it seems like that's exactly what happened. In this case, the Pokemon models were dumped onto a publicly accessible database, and then the PalWorld devs downloaded them, and then they loaded them into a 3D modeling app, they changed them just a little, and then they put them into PalWorld as these new Frankenstein monsters. And yeah, they're all little Frankensteins. Now, there are some really damning examples of this. Like, for example, there's this guy who's got literally the exact same face from Pokemon Galar's Meowth. So they just copy and pasted his face wholeheartedly. Now, literally no one should be downplaying this. This is literally the smoking gun of PalWorld's crime scene. And this is kind of the divisive evidence that puts Pocketpair out of business once and for all, or maybe not. Either way, this was actually such a big controversy that the Pokemon company finally walked out of their house and got involved. And they are using this as the basis to form an investigation into the full extent of PalWorld's asset stealing, and potentially this will lead to a lawsuit if they find enough data, and that is juicy. Now, I was so curious about this that randomly yesterday, while I was on my lunch break, I ran into a lawyer on the street yesterday, and him and I started up a conversation about this topic, and he had some very interesting answers for me. Now, even though PalWorld has done something extremely unethical, it will be extremely hard for the Pokemon Company to defend their position and their IP, depending on whether or not they have actually copyrighted the models. And that gives some major loopholes into this case that could backfire in the Pokemon Company's face and give PalWorld a shocking win. Because according to my lawyer friend, despite the plagiarism controversy, PalWorld can win a case against the Pokemon Company on two major grounds. Ground one is the 25% rule. This is a rule in America that if you change 75% of something, even if you're using 25% of something stolen, it becomes a unique item again. This is the grounds that allowed Walt Disney to create Mickey Mouse based on his original design for Oswald the Rabbit, which was locked up in the rights by Universal Studios for years. And this is the grounds that also allowed Keiji Inafune to create Mighty No. 9, a blatant ripoff of Mega Man, who he suddenly lost the rights to. This rule is also typically used in modern days by major media companies to avoid paying royalties to the creators of popular characters. Hence why Miles Morales' Spider-Man is appearing more often, because every time they use the classic version, Marvel has to pay a payout to the family of Steve Ditko for Peter Parker. Another ground that PalWorld could win on is the argument that PalWorld is technically a parody of the Pokemon Company, and therefore that would make them exempt from prosecution on those grounds, because it has guns, it has violence, it has these over-the-top concepts like slavery, and that indicates that is totally different from the family-friendly Pokemon franchise that it's ripping off of. If you argue that PalWorld is a parody, you might have a pretty good argument and you could actually win in a court of law. Like, for example, Weird Al Yankovic. Yankovic has constantly existed and gone away with rewriting classic music because he's doing it as a parody artist. And because he's a parody artist, people have allowed Weird Al to exist. And the main reason they haven't sued him, because by all accounts, he's a happy, chill, nice guy. But that being said, Pocketpair is not Weird Al. Pocketpair really doesn't have friends in the industry. And between its AI bro CEO and its definitely stolen assets, it's really just making a lot of enemies. Speaking of which, a large number of veteran game industry developers are speaking out against PalWorld in anger because, let's face it, shit is fucked up. It's extremely disheartening when you have real artists putting years of work into making a game just to see PalWorld make a game in a third of the time using literally stolen assets with a CEO who disrespects artists and underpays the ones he has. So to sum it all up simply, the developers of other video games feel that PalWorld using AI and stolen shit was kind of a form of cheating to get ahead faster. Overall, this drama is getting really juicy, and I'll be waiting and watching to see how the PalWorld versus Pokemon battle goes down, because I imagine it won't be settled anytime soon, and I imagine this could drag on for a couple of years. Now, anyway, that being said, here's what I guess is what I think will eventually happen if this does go to court. Now, scenario one is the Pokemon Company wins. The Pokemon Company has billions of dollars at its disposal, a frightening legal team at its beck and call. And with this clear stolen asset evidence, it's not hard to imagine that they easily win a copyright lawsuit against PalWorld. Damages will definitely be awarded, and theoretically those damages could be so big and so great that they bankrupt Pocketpair and make them a memory. Now, this is the absolute worst case scenario for them. They could go under over this. PalWorld might just get straight up banned from sale. Used copies of PalWorld would then become a forbidden collector's item, so that could be lucrative. And the servers will eventually go down, and if you still have copies of PalWorld, it will become a strictly one-player experience, which would be sad because a lot of people are loving playing it online. Now, scenario two is PalWorld somehow wins or doesn't get punished for their crime. So yeah, the previous example was the worst case scenario for PalWorld, but anything less than a worst case scenario for them will almost certainly be a win, because the Pokemon Company could just mandate that all PalWorld has to do is change out some of their assets, replace some of their monsters to look a little bit less like Pokemon, and then they can continue to exist. Because as long as the game continues to exist, that's a win. And I think as the game continues to exist, it'll keep improving and slowly become more and more of a legitimate game and less like Pokemon as it keeps evolving down its own road. And since it is evolving down its own road, right now the game just made billions of dollars at launch, and now it has a 5-year roadmap where it's going to implement a lot of these changes. And these changes will make the game better, and it will hopefully make it less like Pokemon and more deviating into its own unique thing. Of course, though, I should mention that I was talking to an American lawyer, and he was talking to me about the American legal system. And both Pocketpair and the Pokemon Company are based natively in Japan, where copyright laws are a lot more harsh and a lot more extreme. So this could go in a lot of wild ways that I'm not predicting. But either way, I don't know though. The dev artists say that it's still a shitty outcome, that they got away with stealing assets and became millionaires. And I have to be bemused by that, because there's this weird fucked up pipeline in America lately where you can become famous, you can commit crimes, and as long as you only commit a few crimes and you don't get caught, you'll become rich. And then once you're rich, no one can stop you. See Logan Paul here stealing his crypto money to pay for his slightly more legitimate energy drink business where he sells energy drinks to children. Or the fact that Crunchyroll used to be a pirate company before they became big enough and large enough to legitimize themselves and de-sync themselves from piracy. It's really annoying that as children we're caught that if you do crimes, you'll get punished and go to jail. But in real life, it's more like if you do crimes, you might get punished if you're poor, unless the crimes made you rich enough to pay off the cops. Seriously, the world is kind of fucked up right now. It seems like crime is suddenly becoming legal, and as long as you're rich enough, too big enough to fail, you can get away with anything. At least that's the crux of the controversy with PalWorld, but the online discourse around it is really cringe. There are so many different factions with so many weird political ideologies and weird horses in this race. There's hardcore Pokemon fans who just view PalWorld's outright existence as an existential threat. And yeah, the fact that PalWorld is a better game and has more content than Pokemon, that's a good thing. That encourages competition. That encourages that the next Pokemon game is going to try to be better than PalWorld. But yeah, the whole asset stealing thing, I can't ignore that either. There's also hardcore PalWorld fans who just don't want their new favorite game to suddenly be shut down by the banhammer of crime. And I sympathize with these guys because they're just having fun. They're being fanboys. They've got a new favorite thing. Good for them. And yeah, I see that PalWorld is kind of really delivering on the online multiplayer in ways that Pokemon has just always fallen short of for decades. So yeah, I do kind of see some validity in their argument, but overall, both groups of hardcore Pokemon and hardcore PalWorld fans are completely overreacting against each other, and you guys gotta chill, you guys. There's also these weird people who both hate Pokemon and hate PalWorld for their own individual reasons and both want them both to fail, no comment on that, but literally anyone that consumes hate is just pure crazy. Look, I know Pokemon just isn't as good as it used to be when we were kids, and I know like it's valid that the Pokemon company hasn't really been keeping up with the way the industry's changed. And again, PalWorld is kind of good because I think having this competition here might kind of wake them up and like, you know, make them try a little bit harder. Because like, yeah, there have been Pokemon competitors for years, but no one's really dented their armor. No one's really given a shit. Digimon has always been there. Digimon has always provided more of a character-driven story than Pokemon, but, you know, they were never like directly competing with Pokemon. And Monster Rancher was here for a while too. It tried to compete, but it never made it. And I think that game's been completely forgotten. Now, I do think things will ultimately probably work out with PalWorld. I think PalWorld is kind of here to stay, unless Pokemon sues them into oblivion. But I do wish their CEO wasn't such a cringe AI bro. Like, especially because PalWorld will probably pay for his next bad unethical idea. So there's that too. Oh, okay, and breaking news apparently. If you got through this whole video and didn't decide that Pocketpair was fundamentally evil, apparently after PalWorld, they're already developing a brand new game. And get this, their new game is just Hollow Knight, with some shit changed around. But right now, you can see from their in-development screenshots, they're literally just starting with Hollow Knight 1 as it existed in the past, and they're slowly swapping some new stuff in and out of it. This is just awful, guys. Like, I tried to give these guys some credit, but the more I read into them, they keep doing worse and worse shit. I kind of thought maybe the success from PalWorld would help them clean up their act, but nah, Mizabe is way too scummy to give up his plagiarism with Extra Steps profit model. I still want to play PalWorld because I do think it is a breath of fresh air in the otherwise stale monster raising RPG game industry, but I also understand that a lot of people are choosing to boycott the game because they don't want to support this AI company, they don't want to support a guy who stole assets, and they don't want to support the shitty things the devs did. And that's valid too. I see where they're coming from. I'm not going to say it's wrong to boycott the game, but I'm not boycotting the game myself. I'm too curious about what's inside. Anyway, I guess that's the whole situation. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know where you guys stand. There's so many places to stand on like the flowchart of like lawful good or lawful evil. I guess I'm at that PalWorld is a good idea, but AI art is always bad. Stealing assets is always bad. And the company that made this game is bad. But I support video games. Video games are like one of my favorite ways to de-stress. And excessive hatred is just bad for everyone. So I guess don't be a hater, but don't support people you don't like. But at the same time, I'm giving this a shot because it looks really cool. It's such a complicated situation. All right, let me know what you guys think. Chime in the comments. See you later. Good night.